Well, Catherine Macaulay, as you probably know, was the founder of the Sisters of Mercy in Dublin, Ireland in the 1830s.
She was born into a very wealthy family. Her father was in construction.
Catherine Macaulay was a remarkable individual. You hear wonderful stories about her. She was a woman who held on to her faith at a time when there was pressure to not.
So her life was very interesting. Rich to poor to rich, you know.
Her family was doing okay. Her father died. Some years later, her mother died. And she and her two siblings were left as orphans. She moved to some other relatives who were more prosperous and could afford to kind of take her in.
She went to the Callahan family, and they did not have any children. They were Quakers. They were very generous. They were very wealthy. And so she began to manage the house there and cared for their affairs when they would travel.
Mrs. Callahan died in 1819 and Mr. Callahan in 1822.
And Catherine took such good care of him.
Mr. Callahan's will left everything to Catherine.
And Catherine Macaulay would get everything.
So Catherine Macaulay inherits this fortune from her aunt and uncle. And so by this point she's a woman of mature years. And she should do, by polite society, is marry and use her money, donate her money to the church if she wants to do that. Or basically she shouldn't be a single woman alone doing benevolent work. This is unheard of.
Why is she doing this? Why is she spending all this money? But she had a vision of bringing the women and children off the streets, and that's what she did.
She began building in 1824. The house didn't open until 1829.
She built that house on Bagot Street in Dublin, Ireland.
That was what was behind what came to be called the House of Mercy. So when she built the House of Mercy, one of the first things she wanted to provide was safe housing for young women.
And there are women living with her at Bagot Street who are believing what she's doing, want to have a life devoted to serving others.
So everywhere that the Sisters of Mercy went, when they went to a new town, let's say, to start a new convent, what we call a new foundation, they immediately would provide housing for women if there were some in the area who needed it, or perhaps for orphans. In some cases it was more that need that was there. And they usually went purposely to start a school, and then they would visit the sick in their homes. So those three works became very characteristic of the Sisters of Mercy. They had several challenges, I think, starting out. First of all, there was a challenge of doing what they wanted to do when sisters, nuns, were not supposed to be doing that. They were not supposed to be out and about on the streets visiting the sick or discovering that there were women who needed a safe place to stay. So there was a lot of criticism that they couldn't really be authentic sisters because they were doing things that sisters never did. So the term walking sisters started in Ireland as a kind of derisive term. Oh, they say they're sisters, but look, they're out walking about the town. They can't be. So these are the walking sisters, you know, that kind of thing. So there was that obstacle. There was the obstacle of poverty, money problems.
They were poor, you know. The money that built Bagot Street didn't sustain them for beyond that. So they depended on other people, and because they were educating poor, they didn't get very much money.
But then there was also sickness and death. This was a time when tuberculosis was rampant, and there was no known way really to cure it. Deaths of her relatives, and then deaths of the young sisters. Catherine herself died of tuberculosis. All that illness and death somehow did not keep people from wanting to join the community. So a bishop from Pittsburgh, who was Irish, went back over to Ireland looking for sisters who would come over here to work with his people. And that's how we came to Chicago as well. When the Sisters of Mercy came from Ireland and landed in New York, the Bishop of Pittsburgh was there to meet them, but so was this priest from New York who had just been named the Bishop of Chicago, and he put in his bid right away. And Francis Xavier Ward, of course, said, "In time, Father, in time."